Hey everyone, welcome back to Casual Watch Review channel. Well, this week I've got another interesting interview for us, and I'm very glad to introduce Jem from Eliott Brown. Thank you so much for joining us.
Good morning. Thank you for having me.
Well, we're here to talk about one of your newer watches, but a couple of weeks ago I got my hands on the Holton Professional, which I really enjoyed. But before we do that, would you mind just introducing yourself?
My name's Jem. I look after all the marketing here at Eliott Brown. Been here 5 years, and it's a job that certainly keeps me on my toes.
I didn't realize you guys were part of, we used to be animal watches.
That was the premise, actually, of Eliott Brown. So Eliott Brown is two people. It's Ian Elliott and Alex Brown, as you know, and as you mentioned in your last podcast. And Ian Elliott founded Animal back in the 90s. And what a lot of people don't see the connection with that is because they're known as this massive sort of apparel surf company. But actually, Animal was founded on a Velcro watch strap. And they sold 1 million units of strap before they went, we should probably put a watch on this. So I think they're probably the only ever watch business to start with not a watch and start with sort of the accessories to that. And then Alex came on the scene, so the Brown element, and he was the horologist for Animal. Ian left Animal in the early 2000s. Alex stayed on until sort of 2013. They sat down in the pub and said, look, if we were to make a watch, what would it look like? What would we want it to be? And they took all of their knowledge of the extreme sort of sports world and made the Camford. So that was our first introductory piece into the watch market. And it needed to have all sort of our USPs. So it needed to be waterproof, shockproof, but then not the sort of big hunk of plastic that we were sort of getting really used to seeing. And it was needed to have this smart quality that you could be in a suit wearing it, you could be canyoning, and you wouldn't have to then sort of swap your watches around for different purposes.
Well, today we're here to talk about one of the newer watches in the line. This is the Beachmaster, which you very kindly sent me over. So all of the footage here is of the actual watch itself. Is this the first one that's inspired by, I guess, military history?
There is definitely military history nods to it. We, at the same time that we released the Holton, we were approached to do a mission timer. So the Beachmaster has been a labour of love. It was probably one of the first conversations I remember having with Ian and Alex as we started this watch being sort of in the background. This is what we want to produce. And actually, COVID gave us a really great opportunity to sort of knuckle down and sort of build out those finer details. So the mission timing element was definitely from a military perspective. The history then came with the name. So the Beachmaster is actually a rank. It's not, as I've been asked a couple of times, whether it's us sort of sticking two fingers up at Omega with Speedmaster or any other sort of watch brand that has master in the title, which I quite like actually, because people think we're plucky enough to do that. So there's always a good element to that. But it is an actual rank in the at the time it was in the Navy, and then that's now moved to the RLC, and the Navy still hold it as a rank as well. So the Beachmaster, or Beachmasters, because there was a couple, were the guys in D-Day that basically said go. On the top of the dial on the internal bezel is H. Now, H hour stands for the start of any kind of military mission. It's the bit where you cross what's called the line of exploitation. In the D-Day example, it's the bit where they first assaulted the beach. So that's kind of where we keep that military history in there. But actually, the functionality of the watch can be used across a plethora of things. And we liked the fact that it came to inspire some Royal Marines that sort of said, look, this is how we break down everything from a military perspective. It'd be really cool to have an analog watch that allows us to sort of time up to something, and then to be able to, once we're in the mission, have sort of different call out points within that mission that we can work out where we are and whether we're on time and we're actually achieving our objectives that we set out to be.
I've got the Quartz version. So the movement here is a GMT movement.
Yes.
And then the rest of the mission timing elements are controlled for the top bezel, which is also ratcheted. How would you use it exactly?
So you can do it in two ways. It's actually designed to be done across your GMT hand. So once you've set your GMT, the reason why, if you have a look at the GMT hand, there are two triangles. So you have the inner 24-hour countdown, which sits on that first triangle. So you'd set your GMT to that point. There's your 24-hour scale, and off you go. Don't need to move your GMT hand since. The next point then would be to use the 120 click-clock bezel top crown, which would then move the H around to your GMT hand. The example I use, but it isn't military, is that it takes an hour, bizarrely, mentally, to cross the start line of the London Marathon. So if you use the marathon as an example, what you'd want to do is move H to where your GMT hand is and then move it back an hour. So, and then that's it stuck. And then once the hour hand then sweeps round, you will then get to H. And then as it goes through, so let's say you run a marathon in 4 hours, you can glance around, and as your GMT hand gets round to the 2 indice after H, you know that you've been running for 2 hours and then for 4 hours. So the idea behind it is very simple.
And it's doing that by the GMT hand, so you get in 24 increments.
Exactly that. And that's why there's 120 lock points on the internal bezel, is because you then get the sort of that half an hour indice as well. And the way that the GMT hand then will move around, it gives you that sweep across all of that. That's why.
And then when you're not using that, of course, it does have the GMT function as well. So you can consistently maintain your 2 time zones on here.
Yep.
Even though it has this timing GMT function, it still is as robust as the previous watch that we looked at, the Holton. So it's got the 300 meter water resistance, 40 millimeter case. And then this one is the Quartz version, but you also have a mechanical version of this one as well.
The mechanical version is the first time that we've put a full Swiss Solita 330.2 into any of our automatic watches. So that was a real jump for us. We've always set our stall out to be incredibly affordable. You get a lot of watch with your money. The Beachmaster automatic retails at just under £2,500, which is a big step up from where we were before. But it's a fantastic watch, and you get all of that timing ability. It's actually a patent as well. It's worth sort of mentioning, is that nobody has ever created in a watch this sort of the time up, time down function, which is really cool. So to be able to sort of say, look, we're 11 years old and we have a timing patent to our name in our watches is a pretty phenomenal thing to be said. Actually, when we looked into it, we think the last person or the last business to have any kind of timing patent was Rolex in the 40s. It's a really cool accolade to have against us as a business.
I also like the way that the Holton wore. This wears really well with those slightly sloped down lugs. Fits my 7.2 inch wrist really nicely. I've got some shots of it here. The band that you gave me on is a rubber strap that you have to cut with a butterfly clasp, but does it come on other options as well?
Our automatic comes on the bracelet, and then you have that cut down textured rubber strap that also comes within the box. And then the Quartz version, any of our gents straps will fit our gents watches. The lug width on all of them is 22 mil, so you can chop and change as where you go, but we offer 2 or 3 different variants on our website to sort of change those out. I actually wear mine, my automatic, on one of our webbing straps. For me, it just works nicer because I have a thinner wrist. So because because all of our rubber is integrated, you then just have that sort of extra slight edge to it, whereas the webbing just sort of drops off the corners of the shoulders of the watch. So yeah, and you can change those out really easily.
What the other thing I like as well about the box is, well, not only does it come in a box that you could definitely use as a travel case, which is always nice. It's not something you have to store away. It comes with the screwdriver for removing the strap. And then this one also comes with a pin tool for, I'm guessing that's to adjust the butterfly clasp.
You've got 3 holes on either side of the clasp. So once you've cut it, you then have those micro adjustments as well. So everybody's wrist changes with hot or cold and those sorts of things. So it's the ability that you like, depends on how you wear your watch, but if you like it quite close to your wrist and it gets hot in the summer, then you have some breathing space on that clasp, which is really important.
One thing that I noticed when I was reviewing the Holton, the screwdriver to undo the strap doesn't undo the back case, does it, to replace the battery? So how do you recommend people replace the batteries? Because
we have a shock protection system that goes over the back of our movement. When a lot of watchmakers open the case, also having a bolt down case back isn't something that is that common. So a lot of people have that twist down case back, and the amount of times that we've had sort of coming back from jewelers where they've tried to put it in that cleat to twist it and then have scratched the case. They're the 2 things that people kind of go, I don't understand how to do that, and it comes back, or they damage the watch in the process. So because of that, we would always say, look, if you can, send it back to us. One of the things for your US-based listeners is that we are looking at opening a service center in the States. You won't then have to worry about kind of the customs and getting it backwards and forwards from the UK. Our service center is here. It is part of HQ. We don't send it away to anybody else. and our turnaround for a battery is sort of like 10 working days. So unlike the bigger Swiss brands and bigger watchmakers, we actually have a really quick service time. If you are adamant that it is something that you want to change yourself, then if you message the service team, we can let you know what sort of the hex driver you would need to take those case backs off. But it isn't something we tend to kind of put out in as open source, just because we've seen a lot of things go wrong. And if the other thing to remember is if you are opening your watch yourself and then it floods or something happens to it, you're out of warranty, of which there's 5 years with Eliott Brown. So that's the other thing to remember. If you want to keep your warranty in check, then it's easier if we do the work.
So you mentioned the shock protection system inside. So this is something that I couldn't really cover in the review that I did because I didn't want to open the watch. Can you explain a little bit more about that? Because there isn't a lot of information that I could find.
Most movements sit in something really flimsy like this, and it's just a bit of plastic that sits and then floats the movement inside, and then that sits then in a case like that, and then that floats in. So that's probably what, if you open a watch, that's the kind of the back that you would expect to see, sort of that sort of plastic inner. What we have made is a stainless steel shock protection system. So this is just where your crown stem goes. This is for a camphor, so it's slightly different to what you would have seen for a Beachmaster, because obviously there's 2 stems. So you have this solid stainless steel disc that then sits flush in the back of the case like that. So that's when you take the case back off, that's the sort of thing that you'd be confronted with. Now that steel disc sits on polyelastomer dampeners. So any shock, any inertia will then be taken around those dampeners and then held in the case rather than actually entering into the fragile movement, which is the heart. This is basically the armor for the heart of the watch that we've created. So when the case back comes off, so that's it with the case back on, that's what you'll be left with. It doesn't have the movement shield system written on it. It's just a blank piece of steel. But that's what most watchmakers kind of go, well, I can't get into the battery because I don't know how to take that next bit out.
Would you mind just talking about the Lume application on this model in particular?
What we have done with this, and actually with our automatics as well, the blackout and the ghost are slightly different. But with the Nevo especially, all the indices and the 3 hands, so like your standard analog watch, are in green. And then anything else is in blue. So anything that's in blue kind of denotes your mission timing or has a timing complication to it. Anything in green is it's just telling the time as an analog watch. It's really cool. Everybody loves Lume, and it's quite fun to to play around with that. And it has a purpose as well. So if it is dark, and you are on that mission, you can see very clearly where you are with the 2 different color tones. So it makes it incredibly easy to read.
The case is very similar, I would say, wearability to the Holton.
There's a slight difference between the Holton and the Beachmaster is that we've polished those corners on the chamfers of the watch too, and that just kind of gives it a bit more of a pebble-like feel to the watch. Whereas the Holton is very angular, very military, very tool watch. This just kind of gives it a little bit of a softer edge, literally, to the shoulders of the watch, and just makes it sort of a bit prettier.
And it doesn't have that anti-fingerprint coating on this one like it does on the Holton. Probably to get this more variations in colour. Yeah,
it's actually something that we are looking to do going forward. It's some feedback that we've had back from sort of our loyal fans here at EB. So, and that's the other thing to mention here, Sam, is that we listen. We do change things. We do kind of take stuff on board. We are here to learn. I love the fact that this isn't just like, well, this is what we're putting out and this is where it stays. So the anti-fingerprint is something that we're looking at bringing back in with the Beachmaster watch this space.
So if anybody wants to see one of these in person, is there any opportunity in the US to see them? Are you at any watch shows?
We will be in New York for the Wind Up Watch Fair. We're looking at doing some cool stuff. There might be a watch launch or 2, just to sort of whet your appetite. And actually New York is all about the Beachmaster. So if you have any questions and want to get hands-on with the watch, then come and find us. We're really excited. We had a great show in Chicago in July, and that's the first time we've crossed the pond, and we're really keen to sort of build that audience and people to understand who we are.
The Holton, and we've talked about this one being sort of slightly more military skewed, or at least with that inspiration. But the majority of your range of watches are ruggedized outdoor watches. And originally they didn't come from a military perspective. You came from a watch for outdoor activities. So I just thought I'd better say that.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's interesting because I think that's something that gets forgotten quite a lot. The Holton is absolutely sort of our Speedmaster of our collection, and it's the one that most people will know us for. But you're absolutely right. We are a sports watch brand. We are designed to be worn sort of outdoors, and the military element sort of has just come across with the Holton, and then with some of the influence into the Beachmaster as well.
If you've got any comments, let us know in the comments section down below. If you're new to the channel, I would love it if you hit the subscribe and the thumbs up, and we will see you next time on Casual Watch Talk.